roundtable on sustainable growth of Delhi 2030 and Vision 2050. This roundtable is slightly different from what you would have attended. I think everybody here would have attended dozens of roundtables and seminars, conferences, loaded with number of PowerPoint presentations and literature and statistics of what it is and what it should be and what should be done and what ought to be done. We thought we look at where we are, where we have to be in 2030, not going into statistics, not putting any statistics because they become a subject of debate. X statistics, we do not know with what assumptions, Y statistics, we do not know with what assumptions, and they are just not there. So no statistics, all that we want to see is that, look, what was in 1990, 2000, 2010, more than 25%. And what it is going to be in 2030, looking from the statistics of the 12th plan, that is 2012 and 17, we find the pace at which the urbanization is growing and the need for urban services is increasing. This gap may be more than 25% over the plan, between what is planned and what is actually needed. Two things I would say at this. I'll rather quote an example rather than saying our integrated energy policy, one of the very finely drafted and documented documents. The government announced the integrated energy policy in 2004. The committee submitted the report in 2006. The report took 2 years to reach the cabinet level. And it was only in 2010 that the reverse of or the trickling down of the energy policy for implementation came to the test. Between 2004 and 2010, the energy demand, the IT technology, and the total consumption pattern had undergone a vast change. With the result, the recommendations which were made in 2004-2006, based on the data and growth rates of 2000 and 2002, or rather 1997 to 2002, all became out of date. And there has been a total lack of tuning between the demand of the local bodies, district bodies, state bodies, regional bodies, and the country as a whole, and what was planned. Similarly, the issue of governance. Without naming, I'll give two states. One state is surplus in power. It is asking the generators to supply power at an agreed rate of 1 rupee 80 paisa per unit. The state distribution company imposes rupees 250 on this, and this 180 becomes 430. The deficit state, which is reeling under power deficit, wants to import that power, but the importing state distribution company also imposes another 2 rupees 70 paisa on it. With the result, the landed cost at the consumer door is 6.5 plus, that is between 650 to 7 rupees per unit. Whereas the domestic supply cost of the importing state is 6 rupees 50 paisa. So nobody is willing to buy this power which is costing 670 or 675 or 7 rupees. Even if they are willing to pay for it, the state is not willing to pay. Now that's a issue where we can say power everywhere, but still the darkness prevails. And this is nothing but an issue of governance which needs to be addressed. The power sector, as we look at the initiative for the economic development or for any industry, cement, steel and non-ferrous metals are the three essential ingredients. Nothing, if we see right from the frame to the shoe, something or somewhere or the other, cement or steel would be involved in one form or the other. Either the machine to make the wood or directly the steel or the non-ferrous metal. These three, the mining of metals, the metallurgy, and cement for the entire construction work, they are the most pollutant industry in the red tag. When you are casting, forging, melting, all these units, they demand power, they say no, they should be taxed, they should be rated highest tariff because they put a jerk on the system. They steal the power within brackets, and therefore they should be taxed, their tariff should be the highest. When it comes to coal, environment says no, they should not be given license, they should be driven out because they are highly pollutant. And the question arises, what do we do? Do we do away with the metals, steel, non-ferrous metals? How do we make the machines? How do we make the products? How do we make the machine to make a machine? Capital goods, capital and basic and heavy goods. So these are the what you call as a necessary evils. I just quoted the example I was talking to Gopal about the cigarette industry. The government has been taxing for the last, ever since we were child, every budget has a unique item increasing tax on cigarettes. But still, despite the increasing tax, the consumption is on the increase. The profitability of the cigarette industry is on the increase. So, why to look at these industries which are basic to industrial development and economic development? So, the only solution lies is A, look at the supply side, reduce the pollution and the environmental degradation that takes place from the supply side, and look at the demand side, reduce the quantity, improve the efficiency, and improve the technology so that the per unit input of energy, per unit of GDP, maybe in terms of dollars or per rupee of output, goes down, or the coefficient of input energy into the output declines, which during the period from 1970 to 1990 it declined, 1990 to 2010 it declined, and thereafter the rate of decline is relatively slower. But that needs to be improved. So it has to be attacked both from the demand side as well as from the supply side. And it is in this context that SAFFEE got into it, that look, we look at the industrial aspect, we do the policy advocacy, we look at the metallurgy sector and how to reduce its pollution and improve the energy efficiency, and how to do the demand side management. And again, this energy is not into the industry. I found that as a regulator, when we looked at the tariff of the water utility, they say 70% of their cost is the electricity used for pumping, because the capital cost of laying the pipeline has been incurred 30 years back, or being laid down once for 30 years. But the highest recurring cost is the electricity. So electricity, then it comes to waste management. So it's not that electricity is only in the steel and construction. It is in day-to-day life, in terms of health, in terms of water supply, in terms of waste disposal, in terms of sewage treatment. Any activity you take right from morning to evening, power is involved, and power efficiency is involved, and the generation of power and its polluting effects on environment, health, diseases are involved. So this is where we look at, and that is how we thought we should have a round table, and in that we should have the captains of the public sector, the government, the people who have been delivering and controlling, and the technical experts, and take a view on, despite having everything, still we are lacking. I looked at the budget of Delhi, Jalaj will be throwing more light on it, and I found that it is fantastic amount. Delhi generates a GDP of more than 3 lakh crores. It has a tax revenue of more than 12,000 crores a year. And still, things don't happen. So the idea is to find out and have a feel of why the things don't happen. where and what is lacking, which may not come out of the, if we have a long lectures and discussions, just want to have a feel of what exactly is the reason and where do we go. So with this, I request Raj to.
I really wish I were able to speak with a lot more authority than what my present job, my little experience gives me. But I'll simply indicate a few municipal council or municipal corporation oriented or a worm's eye view of the world as we see from the grassroots or from a perspective that we require such changes to happen. A lot of what I am about to address really stems from the perceived need of the citizen. A lot may appear irrelevant, but all this contributes to where the energy can be seen. And I would like to keep stressing on it. Well, this, I would request you to address yourselves with this issue. Urbanization is here to stay. Urban issues are here to stay. A lot of population shifts, demographic disturbances, if I may call it, for want of a better word, dislocations will happen. The preparedness of municipality towards addressing these spurts of growth in certain sectors and not addressing itself in certain other spurts is there to stay. Well, for NDMC, let me begin by saying that this is the crucible of experimentation. Although it says 42.74 square kilometers, really the area, if you take out the president's estate and the central vista and this and that, bridge, etc., it boils down to about 14 square kilometers. It's almost like a colony. But what is significant to notice here is, in spite of the, in spite of being home to the greatest capital the British ever made, in spite of having, if I may say, three totally different levels of population. One, the government servants from the cabinet secretary to the section officer and maybe the peon and driver as well. There's a huge sector of population which belongs to just the government category. I will simply average them out as middle class. The other is the relatively posh colonies where people do have money for all sorts of expenditure, again resulting in markets where the prices naturally follow the demand and supply curve, so prohibitive. Places to be seen in, people to be seen with. And the third, we are home to about 31 JJ clusters and places where simply people have come down and squatted and refused to leave. Again, I think in nowhere else in the country, and I'm open to correction, does a Tehvazari, just the right to squat or just the privilege to squat, have so much of differential, as in, if a person comes and squats somewhere in the Regal building or in CP or in Savinagar market, his sale is here. And if he moves barely a kilometer away, it is roughly 1/3. So, therefore, and I'm pointing it out because that's exactly the point where sometimes corruption is bred, whichever department. Issue is that this is the kind of disparity within this 14 square kilometers. At the same time, what we look at daily is, at NDMC is, that within this 14 square kilometers, NDMC supplies its own, electricity, so we are our own discom. We take water from DJB, add some markup and supply water. We have happily and invariably been fund surplus. So and the greatest. The negative growth in the population of residents. There is a huge floating population, office goers, shoppers, shopkeepers. But the people who have been residing here have slowly moved out into the more posh colonies, residential areas. Therefore, there is a negative growth. We have the highest green cover, and well, that can always be disputed. Center of cultural activity issue is we try to make do with this. The good part is that unlike any other municipal council, this place, NDMC council, was created, and I was you were joint secretary in the ministry at that time, and I had the privilege of very briefly associated with the creation of the NDMC Act itself. It was created with no councillors, so in a way, that part is taken care of. There are some nominated members, there are elected members, and there are official members, and the chairperson is therefore the first head which rules. But more importantly, there's a lot of flexibility in decision making and promptness, and therefore there cannot be any excuse for anything getting delayed. Being home to the seat of power of the country, looking after the people and the buildings and the infrastructure, there has to be a zero response time to certain situations, and I think that was the basic reason why NDMC was created in the manner it stands today. In urban planning, in urban development, it also revolves upon us that we create infrastructure which should be, if not for the rest of the country, but at least for the surrounding municipal corporations to follow. This I just mentioned for what it is, but there is naturally the maximum amount of discomfort, if I may call it, because so many organizations, they keep watching us. We have restrictions on the residential building zone area. There are height restrictions, there are area restrictions, there are construction restrictions, which is in a way very good, because that's how the city continues to keep its own character. I'm just running a few slides to give an idea of the scale, or the fact that the scale is not huge. The length of roads, lanes is manageable. Water supply, yes, as Sahab just mentioned. We have a almost 85-15 kind of distribution, the BJP supplied and people supplied water. This is something I would like to just mention here, that the sewerage, stormwater, sewerage, the pipes underlying our city, they were made roughly 100 years back with a perspective of a certain population. We are talking in terms of New Delhi's then population of some 10-12 lakhs, and to begin with, and it grew up to 35 lakhs by a certain within a decade or so. Nobody would have imagined, far less the people who planned the city, that the population would grow at such rate. Of course, you had a few unfortunate incidents such as the partition of India, and therefore a huge influx of people. You had another unfortunate thing that really became the center for so much development and not so much employment generation in the surrounding areas. So to decongest it, you came up with the NCR concept, which didn't work as well as it was expected to. Therefore, all those urban issues aside, the manner in which the population went through so many multiple number of times, that the sewerage and waste disposal mechanism was perhaps suited up to 1970s kind of population. And that it has survived up to this point is really amazing. At which point will we be able to, for the entire city of Delhi, be able to produce infrastructure, upgrade the infrastructure? To think of another 50 or 100 years, that's another question. In fact, sir, if I may share, my predecessor, Mr. Paramanaya, once told me, the person who got all this building constructed in his time as well, that when the central tunnel in the CP, the middle circle of 2.4 kilometers odd tunnel was being constructed and all that thing was going on, there were no authoritative maps to go on. And when they were digging up, they would come up with all sorts of pipes going left and right, and Mr. Anand has been Mr. Anand Kumar, my colleague, the chief engineer, has been in charge of this CP project. There was so much of so many variables they were dealing with. They didn't even know which way the infrastructure was going. Again, energy is an issue. Electricity is a component. Whatever we do have is, well, here. This is one matter of pride for us. Well, also that, let me just come back to it. In the storm which went by, we had the highest casualty of trees per square kilometers because we do have the oldest trees in this area. And therefore, the branches breaking off, or huge branches breaking off, did result in some congestion. Well, this is something which I would like to take a little time with the permission. You see, we are not talking of a system where we purchase X units of electricity from the GENCOs, TRANSCOs, and pass it on to the markup to the citizen. I think our responsibility and role is much more diversified. If we go rooftop solar, fine. I've had some. In fact, that's I would remember. We were trying something out even in a place like Andamans, and one of the least understood sources of power is solar. The first thing which people used to say that यहाँ तो इतना बारिश होती है यहाँ कैसे होगा? That's exactly the point. जहाँ इतनी ज़्यादा बारिश होती है, the more it rains, the pillar of cloud between the heavens up there and the ground is totally clear, and therefore the insolation is as much high. And therefore, sir, you will be very happy to know that 5 megawatt plant is working so well in a place like Port Blair. The concept which we are already in the process of finalizing this. We had an MOU with the Solar Energy Corporation of India. They're working on about 2 megawatts. We are working independently on 6.5 megawatts. All goes well, 8.5 megawatts is what we are looking at very soon. But the concept is first NDMC buildings, then we approach central government and other organizations that kindly lend us your roof. And then we ask the ordinary citizen to contribute in this movement as follows. He simply gives us the commitment that I will give you 5 square meters of my roof. So somebody steps in, provides that kind of a solar panel, and he is simply paid a certain amount at the end of the month per square meter. His only responsibility is to keep it clean, make sure that clothes are not being dried on it, and monkeys are not jumping on it. That's a very small price. And the entire energy so produced goes into the grid. So ultimately it's a win-win situation. I believe so. That's unless we make the citizen a stakeholder and a beneficiary out of this, the rooftop solar would not be able to proceed. The second is waste to energy. Now we understand that we have a 16 megawatt plant in the outskirts in Pokhara, as a matter of fact, and all of NDMC's garbage, 350 to 500 tons. कितना जा रहा है आपका?
250 to 400 tons we say.
Enough. Let's say 300, 350 tons. All of it is going to that place. And even if we are contributing to the entire might of Delhi's electricity generation, it will still be at an upper cap of 16 megawatts. When you have a few acres of land being dedicated for the purpose. Now, when we went around searching the internet and taking so many presentations, and we went into the market, You have 3 companies who have come up, Gopi?
Now 5 companies.
5 companies, great. 5 companies who have come up with more or less identical technology. But the killer is here that they are asking for 500 square meters to 1000 square meters per plant, 1.4 megawatts at any point of time per plant, which means a total of roughly 40 megawatts per day is what they will contribute. And each plant will take in roughly 70 to 80 tons and give us this 40 megawatts, which means you can imagine the ratio. A few acres of land to 16 megawatts, and here you have this kind of a ratio. If you are able to miniaturize these waste to energy plants, and as they assure us that in so many countries they have managed to set up these with orderless and noiseless running of these plants, I see that in various residential colonies, we should be able to set up such plants, eventually making ourselves energy self-sufficient in the sense that our total energy requirement as of today is barely 160 megawatts. So if we are able to critically position at least huge colonies, will be able to serve their own energy requirements, get their own energy requirements from such miniaturized plants, over and above the greatest benefit of having taken care of all the garbage. When we say modern parking, this I'm not merely talking the pollution, air pollution and noise pollution. I'm also talking of a very simple concept that you come up to, let us say, Khan Market, park your vehicle there and take a metro. Chandni Chowk is one of the best examples. Shastri Park to Kashmiri Gate is another great example where people have made use of this belt parkway concept. Another energy saver. LED lightings, we hope as a policy matter, all the energy, all the lights within NDMC area will be progressively switched to LED. The second aspect is water 24/7. We have plans for reuse by way of STPs. Wherever there is a marketplace, underground STPs are a rage. It has been tried in various, in fact in some universities also. To what extent we are able to provide 24/7 also comes from the extent of we have a serious issue of water table going down and further down. Has reached what 30 to 50 meters in so many areas. Some of our areas are better, but most of them we have crises. So if we are able to use water harvesting tools and better management tools, we are able to raise the water table. That I think would be extremely useful for us. Decentralized garbage management is, well, it basically involves that all the garbage from the colonies without touching the ground would reach the point where it is converted to energy. Which means we totally do away with the dhalao concept, which become eyesores. From the dustbin, domestic dustbin, market dustbin, it directly latches onto a vehicle and directly conveyed to the waste to energy plant. And lastly, the CNG waste, which was just mentioned. The NBCC in the new Motibag started with a very small venture. The second one has come up in East Kirbai Nagar. There is going to be a lot of demolition and construction, reconstruction. Right now, all it's resulting in is malbas at the landfill sites. And at the same time, you are not just using all these trucks, you are also the import of all this, the bricks which are brought in from somewhere unnecessarily. So much of raw earth is wasted there. Instead of this being all this, if you are able to make, say, 3 to 4 of such CNG waste management plants within NDMC area, I think the entire recycling process will have been taken care of. Again, over and above this, again as I said, we do not have too many problems. We do have a highly pampered gentry to look after, and we do have a zero response time expectation, but over and above, New Delhi is a happening city. We would like it to emit as much positivity, as much sense of well-being as possible. Noiseless areas, adventure parks, art and cultural fests, because it is important for, how should I say, for, I think it's given in Chinese here somewhere, that the person, the ruler shall nurture arts and crafts and artisans and cultural activities and should be a patron of art. So we would like that at least to the outside world, certainly it should go that in DMC area, the people who are living, who are controlling the country within the hallowed precincts of the Sansad Bhavan and so on, they are the patrons of well-being and wellness. Well, sir, it's not proper that around 9 p.m. the city just shuts off. Not just about the parks, but about markets. We want it to be a healthy nightlife. It has raised questions on security, women's security, senior citizen security, definitely. So that comes first, but this is the eventual aim. Water ATMs is another, clean water availability, definitely. Cycle tracks is only one of what we have simply flagged, but it is one such thing about wellness and fitness efforts towards that. Gyms, garden gyms, as written on it. In fact, in the morning itself, we saw a few people in Nehru Park were just doing push-ups on those trees, pull-ups on the trees. So it needs some, the expectation and the need is definitely there, and we have to just step out. This is one such experiment which we are doing. We have poles, and what needs to be done is comprehensive coverage, CCTV cameras, plus LED lights, plus Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi throughout NDMC area. The security concerns are in any case with the DOT and security agencies after that will happen. But what's important is, and I mentioned this before I mentioned the 24/7 call center, is that I would like the citizen, the ordinary citizen, my wife, my daughter, my sister, to be able to quickly get on an access platform and be able to inform somebody instead of just merely calling up friends. There should be a sort of sense of security when somebody goes around, not just security. And I do believe that this will go a long way. Urban art has we started by painting dustbins and putting up some stuff on some walls, but I think we'll go a very far way. I think in the second half of August, you would see something else happening within CP as we appreciated sometime in January. I would like to just close this on this positivity factor. There are a lot of negatives within the NDMC. I'm trying to steer clear of them at this juncture. Thank you so very much.
Myself, Bharti Goyal, formerly advisor in the Department of Science and Technology, currently affiliated with some academic institutions as adjunct professor or visiting professor. My interest is basically, I am also a member of SAFFEE.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is K.L. Joe. I'm the former chairman of IGC.
I'm Dr. Rastogi, working as Director in the Ministry of Economic Affairs. Since last 10 years, I was looking after industrial projects. Since last 2 years, I'm looking after nuclear defense strategic projects, which are driven by the team and the office, and policy and law, and other things. And after so many places, I have worked around 17 places. 2 years I was in America, US, IT, and I was in England also. Platform, Manchester, Liverpool, Glasgow, and here I have worked in the Intel office at Chandigarh, JNU, then Delhi University, SSU Technology, National Occupation and Technology. So quite variety of experience. That's it.
Dr. Sogi is also the member of the Governing Council of SAFFEE, the Director Environment on the Governing Council of South Asia for Communications.
Thank you.
Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Julie Rajput. I'm Managing Director of CNC Media. I've been producing and anchoring a show on Past Sector, which is currently being aired on BT now. And I'm also associated with SAFFEE as a member and Director of Communications.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Saurabh Kumar. I work in the Energy Efficiency Services Limited. In the public sector, what you have to do is the only body in the country which implements energy efficiency services, whether it is street lights, water pumping, and the way we do it is that we invest upfront and we get paid by savings. So, we talked about street light projects.
My name is P.K. Saha. I am the CMD of ONGC. I am greatly impressed with the NDMC having so many things which we see that on daily basis, but we don't realize that. So in a very structured manner. Thank you very much, Mr. Srivastava. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I am M.K. Goel, Chairman and Managing Director of Power Finance Corporation, the leading financial institution dedicated to power sector. Greatly impressed to what the plan for what you have shown for the daily state city. We really look forward to achieving all these parameters.
नमस्कार, मैं अनंत कुमार, चीफ इंजीनियर सिविल एनडीएमसी।
I'm O.P. Mishra, Director of Projects with NDMC.
Good afternoon. Myself, Dr. Arvind Kumar. I am President of India Water Foundation. India Water Foundation is basically working in Asia and Pacific on various issues, basically transport operation, energy, water food nexus, and local global model. I am also a member with Meghalaya State Water Resource Council and working basically in Northeastern East. Thank you.
Namaskar, I'm Jalaj Srivastava. I'm working in NDMC. Thank you.
Yeah, this is D.K. Garg, known to all of you.
Gopal Pillai, a former Union Home Secretary and now a citizen of Delhi.
Excuse me for my bad throat. My name is G.S. Agarwal. I am chairman of a company called Century Metal Recycling Private Limited. We manufacture aluminium alloy for the automobile sector. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am C.S. Sanjeev Kumar Gupta. I am Treasurer SAFFEE. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Gopal Saxena. I am the Director of BSES companies in Delhi, supplying power to nearly 70% of Delhi. More importantly, as someone who was born and brought up in Delhi and has seen the evolution of the city in the last 60 years, I think I must compliment Mr. Jalaj Srivastava and the entire NDMC team for their vision of transforming Delhi into one of the biggest ultra megapolises of this world. Thank you.
Namaskar, everybody. I am J.K. Mehta, Secretary General for South Asia Forum for Efficiency. I am Regional Manager South Asia for the World Energy Council. Besides, I am advisor to a couple of companies.
I'm Pradeep Chaturvedi. I'm the chairman of the Indian Association for the Advancement of Science. We've been involved with the Water Energy Council since 1980 for their been on their various studies. And for the World Energy Council India Member Committee, we did in 2010 a sustained development of energy sector in Delhi beyond 2010. And that study formed a very major part of the global study on mega cities, where only 5 cities were referred. And that template has been used by many other countries. And we found that they really found it so useful that even in their plan for 2012 to 2017, they picked up quite a few of those things. And I've been very repeatedly told that this study maybe started some other organizations